What's up, you sick mother bluffers? I'm back at Deuce's for some cash game action. I'm in for 700. I hear there's a lot of action in there, so hopefully I catch some of it and I'm on the good side of it. I'll see you inside. Let's go.
Alright, let's start things off with a couple of bomb pots. In this one, we're playing 5-2-2 high-low, also known as double barrel. We're six-handed to a flop of queen 6-4, 2 clubs on top, and 3-6-2, 2 diamonds on bottom. I'm in middle position with 10-7-6, 4 ace, so I flop 2 pair and the nut flush draw on top, and I flop the current nut low with ace deuce 3, 4, 6 on bottom. Action checks to me, I bet 25 and I get 2 callers. 3 ways to the turn, which comes a 10 on top and a jack on bottom. I turn a better 2 pair on top. I still have the nut low on bottom. Action checks to me again. I bet 40 and both players fold. I scoop the pot. Good start to the session. In this one, we're playing Dramaha. We go 5-handed to a flop of 9-3 deuce rainbow. I'm on the button with jack 4 3-3, so I flop a set of 3s on the board and I've got 2 pair in my hand. When action checks to me, I bet 15 and 2 players make the call. 3 ways to draw time. I get rid of the 4 and I draw the jack of diamonds, giving me a full house in my hand. And if that wasn't crazy enough, the turn comes the last 3 in the deck. I make quads on the board. Action checks to me. I should probably check back here. If the river comes a 10 or a higher card, one of my opponents could river a full house and pay me off. On the other hand, I really hate missing on any value. Maybe one of my opponents has some sort of made hand down like trips and will call 1 or more bets. In game, I decide to bet just over half pot, and unfortunately, they both fold. What a draw and turn though. One of the craziest hands of Dramaha I've ever played. Let's switch to Hold'em. In this one, an action player in middle position opens blind to 15. 3 players make the call before I look down at pocket kings in the big blind. What a dream. I 3-bet to 50 and all 4 players call. Ugh. Going to have to navigate this one cautiously. There's 250 bucks in the middle already as we go 5 ways to a flop of 8 ace ace 2 hearts.
Are you kidding me?
Action checks to me, and sure, 2 aces on the board is better than 1 when you're holding kings, but we're 5-handed, so there's a good chance a random ace is lurking out there. I'm never getting an ace to fold anyway, and I don't even have the king of hearts, so there's a lot of turns that will make things go from bad to worse for me, so I check, and action checks around. The turn comes the 4 of spades, and this time, the small blind leads for 50. I don't really want to call, but I also can't fold for that price. I make the call, and the middle position player comes along. 3 ways to the river, which comes to 3 of hearts. The small blind now jams for around 200 bucks. Myself and middle position player fold, and I believe the small blind showed ace 3 for flop trips, then improved to a boat. Nice hand to them. On to the next one. In this one, there's a double straddle on, and I look down at king queen on the button. I raise to 40, and only the second straddler makes the call. We go heads up to a flop of deuce ace 10 rainbow. They check. Good flop for my range, and I've got a gut shot. I c-bet small for 30, and they make the fold. In this hand, the button straddle is on. Action folds to the middle position player who calls before I look down at pocket 8s in the low jack. I just make the call. The action player in the cutoff raises to 25. I'm the only player to make the call. I check in the dark as we go heads up to a flop of 8, 5, jack, 2 diamonds, and the cutoff c-bets for 31. Now, typically, I think I should raise almost every time here, but I know this player is willing to fire multiple barrels when sensing weakness. However, they will often fold when facing resistance or aggression. For that reason, I feel like the best move is to simply call. As an added benefit, I think it makes it look like I'm on some sort of draw, and if the turn comes a break, my opponent will feel comfortable blasting again on the turn. The turn comes the ace of spades. I check, and as anticipated, the cutoff fires again for 100 bucks. My plan was to just call and hope for a safe river, but this ace is interesting. Since my opponent was the original raiser pre-flop, they could very well have turned top pair, and I'm not sure they will find a fold if I raise. Also, I know this player is capable of putting me in a super uncomfortable spot if the river completes a bunch of draws, so that's another reason for raising. I don't want to scare them off though, so I land on a 3x raise to 300. I think they have around 600 behind, so I think I can sometimes induce an all-in from my opponent, which I will happily call. It doesn't come to that though, as they make the fold. Alright, we're going to be switching from bomb pots to hold'em for the next few hands. In this one, we're playing double barrel. 6 of us see a flop of 5 deuce ace, 2 clubs on top, 8 7 4, 2 spades on bottom. I'm in middle position and I look down at jack 4 4 4 3. I flop the stone cold nut low on top. Not only that, but I block any of my opponents from having it because all 4s are accounted for. For the high hand, I flop a 5 high straight on top. On bottom, I flop a set of 4s and a jack high flush draw. None of these hands stand a good chance of being best by the river though, so I'm going to use my nut low and blockers as leverage to 3 barrel and try to get my opponents to fold. I bet 25 and 2 players make the call. The turn comes another 5 on top and a 9 of spades on bottom. The top board pairing makes it less likely that the jack high flush I just turned on bottom will be good. I continue with my plan and I bet 80, and this time both players fold and I scoop the pot. In this one, there's an under the gun straddle to 5 which 4 players call before I look down at ace 4 off in the big blind. Whatever, I call, and the straddler checks their option. We go 6 ways to a flop of 8 ace 4 rainbow. Okay, this hand got a little bit more interesting. I flop 2 pair. Small blind checks and I decide to check, hoping to see some action from the late position players, but sadly, action checks around. The turn is pretty good. It's the 4 of spades. I turn a boat. Small blind checks again, and I have to try and extract some value here. I'm not expecting much on this super dry board, so I bet 15, and yep, everybody folds. Sad face. In this one, we're playing 5-2-2, and 6 of us see a flop of king 4 queen rainbow on top, jack ace deuce 2 diamonds on bottom. I look down at king queen 8 3 deuce in the big blind. I flop top 2 on top, and I've got a gut shot straight draw on bottom. I check, and action checks around to the cutoff, who bets 20. Button calls, small blind folds, and I have an easy call. We go 3 ways to the turn, which comes the ace of clubs on top and the 10 of spades on bottom. My top 2 pair does not love the ace on top, but I do pick up the second nut flush draw. I love the bottom turn though, which gives me the nut straight. I bet 60, and only the cutoff makes the call. Heads up to the turn, which comes a break looking 6 on top and a disastrous 10 on bottom. I still only have 2 pair on top, and I no longer have the nuts on bottom. I don't see a lot of merit in betting. I think I'm just going to check call here. I check, the cutoff bet's 80, which is a pretty small bet. I'm happy to make the call for that price, and they show ace queen for a better 2 pair on top, and king queen for the same straight as mine on bottom. I thought the 10 on the river on bottom screwed me, but turns out it was the ace on the turn on top, and I get quartered. In this one, there's a double straddle to 10, which the button calls, before I look down at 4-5 suited in the small blind. I'll see a flop for 10, the big blind folds, undergun calls, and middle position player checks their option. We go 4 ways to a flop of jack deuce 3 1 club. I pick up an open-ended straight draw and a backdoor flush draw. I check, and action checks around. The turn comes the 8 of clubs, giving me the flush draw. I only have 5 high though, so I'm going to take a stab at this one by betting 30, and everybody folds. In this one, we're 7-handed in a double barrel bomb pot. Top flop comes ace ace 10 2 spades, and bottom comes 8 jack 8 2 diamonds. I didn't fill my cards, but I'm in the cutoff with ace 10 9 9 deuce double suited. For the high hand, I flop aces over 10s on top, which is currently the second nuts. I also flop a straight flush draw on bottom. There's no low possible on either board, so when action checks to me, I lead for 20, and the hijack is the only player to make the call. The turn comes a deuce of spades, so the flush comes in and it opens up all the low draws. Bottom comes the jack of spades, so I downgrade to the third nut high, as there's now 2 quads possible. The hijack checks to me. I bet for 50, and they jam for 85 bucks. Well, I'm always calling for that price. I ask if they have quads, and they say no. We table our hands, and they show me a nut flush and straight flush draw with king 4-3 of spades, and they have the nut low draw. So, if I can dodge the 5 of spades and any card under an 8 on top, I'm about to scoop, but nah, river comes 6-6, and they make the low, so we chop. Alright, it's now pretty late, and everyone at the table agrees to play one more hand. This is not the last hand of the vlog, by the way, make sure to stick around. We decide to play a $10 Drama Hub bomb pot, and this is another sick one. The flop comes ace jack 6 rainbow, and I look down at ace jack jack 8-5 from under the gun. I flop middle set on board, and I've got a pair of jacks in my hand. I lead out for 40, and I get called by the cutoff and the button. I decide to draw 3 cards, and I draw king deuce deuce, improving my draw hand to 2 pair. The turn is unbelievable. It's the last jack in the deck. I turn quads. I have the board completely locked up. Another insane draw and turn in this session. I'm going to try and extract some value without scaring my opponents away. I bet 75. The cutoff folds, and the button, they're not scared. They raise to 200. I've only got about 370 behind, so there's no real other move than to shove, so I call. The river comes to 9 of diamonds, and now I decide to put the rest of my stack in, and the button snap calls. There's over $1,000 in the pot. I'm fully expecting to chop against the better draw hand, but when I announce quads and 2 pair, the button looks absolutely disgusted, and for pretty good reason. They show pocket aces for the second nuts on the board, and the pair of aces down, which I beat with my 2 pair. So I'm going to scoop this massive, for a 1-2 table at least, $1,074 pot on the very last hand of the night.
Alright, so this wraps up the first session. The next day, I went to downtown Portland to see 2 of my favorite bands play, Gojira and Mastodon. If they play in your area, I recommend you check them out. And the show ended at around 11:30 on the Tuesday night. I could have gone home, get some sleep, and get ready for school day the next morning, but like a good DGen, I went to the nearest poker game available, which was in this bar where I filmed a vlog a little while ago, and I know this game plays big, lots of action, and one hand in particular I think is the sickest hand I've ever played, so let's check it out and see how I did.
In this first hand, I put out the $5 button straddle, which the big blind, middle position, and cutoff call, before I look down at king jack suited. Certainly going to raise this, I make it 25 to go, and only the cutoff makes the call. We go heads up to a flop of 10, 8, 4, 2 diamonds, and the cutoff checks to me. With 2 overs and some backdoor straight and flush draws, I decide to c-bet for 35, and the cutoff snap folds. Nice way to start the session. This is the sickest hand of this vlog, and probably one of the sickest hands I've ever played. I'm in middle position, and I look down at pocket kings. I open to 15, and the cutoff is the only player to make the call. We go heads up to a flop of 9-9-6 rainbow. I think this is the kind of flop on which I'm always going to bet for a small amount. I c-bet for 15, and the cutoff raises to 55. I could give you the whole what they could be doing this with, blah blah blah, but really it comes down to I have kings, I call. The turn brings the 10 of diamonds, which is super annoying because if they were bluffing with 7-8, they got there. If they were value cutting themselves with 10s, they turned a boat. I check and flow, and they continue for $80. I get the distinct feeling I'm being taken to Value Town, but you know when people tell you no one at 1-2 ever folds an overpair? Well, here's Exhibit A. It seems silly after calling a raise and a bet that I'm almost wishing for the river to be an ace or some card where I can find an easy fold. The river is no such card though. It's the king of clubs. I rivered the top full house. What the hell just happened? As played, I feel like my best play is to check for a 3rd time and let my opponent blast again. This time they fire for 220. I pause for a moment before sliding the rest of my chips in, $360, and the cutoff snap calls. There's $1,000 in the pot, and I sheepishly table my kings, knowing full well I most likely put a bad beat on my opponent, and it's unbelievable. They turn over king 9 for flopped trips and a rivered full house. I just hit a 1-outer in this $1,000 pot. This is absolutely insane. One of the most insane hands I've ever played. Alright, a couple more hands before we wrap this vlog up, and this one we're playing a $15 PLO5 lockout. If you're not familiar with lockouts, the button puts out an ante, and after looking at their cards, players decide whether to call the 15 or not, but they cannot raise. Once everybody has acted, the button has the option to raise. So in this one, I'm in the small blind with ace 8-4-3. I call, and 3 other players make the call as well. The button checks their option, so we go 5 ways to a flop of 9 ace 5 2 hearts. The heater continues as I flop top set. I lead out for 45, and the button is the only player to make the call. We go heads up to the turn, which comes to 7 of hearts. Obviously, not loving it. I decide to check, and the button does not waste much time before jamming for 112. I'm getting pot odds of 28% to make the call, and I have roughly 23% equity. It's not a huge bet to call, and I'm happy to give my opponent some action, especially after winning that huge pot with kings.
Alright, so here's the deal. I have this. Do you want me to call or fold?
That's on you, big bro. That's on you, man.
So if I pair up on the river, you won't be mad?
I mean, I can't be mad. You know what I'm saying? I can't be mad if you pair up on the roof.
You want to run it once?
Yes, sir. Once.
112. It's 115.
So I end up making the call. I need a 9, ace, 5, or a 7 to win. The river is the 3 of hearts. Boo! And my opponent takes the spot down.
That's it.
Thank you, big bro.
A few moments later, we're in another lockout for $10 this time. I look down at ace, 10-9-6 in the hijack. 5 players, including myself, make the call. Button checks their option, so we go 6 ways to a flop of ace 3-3. I flop the second nuts. Let's go. Action checks to me, and I feel like if I bet, the hand is going to be over. I'm happy to let one or more of my opponents catch up. So I check, and action checks around. Turn comes the 8 of clubs, and on this card, the middle position player leads out for 30. I kind of want to make up for lost value on the flop, so I raise to 100, hoping my opponent has a hand like pocket 8s, or maybe the nut flush with a redraw to a boat with a 3 in their hand. But unfortunately, they fold. It's getting late, and so after a couple of hours of play, I cash out and head home. So this wraps up this vlog. Over the course of the 2 sessions, I booked a profit of $660. During both sessions, I got very, very lucky, and that one outer hand was absolutely insane. I think I fully deserve to be punished for my play, but the poker gods decided otherwise for now. I'm sure I'll get the comeback from this hand at some point in the future, but in the meantime, thank you so much for watching. Please, if you enjoyed this video, do not forget to hit the thumbs up button. Drop me a comment, and don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell if you haven't already. It helps me grow the channel, and I really, really appreciate it. I'll catch you in the next one.